Hi, my name is Sam and I'm the Grand Prospirator of Corporate Learning. Currently on leave and temporarily in Toronto. Just wanted to spend a little time sharing a couple observations that I've had over the last 2 years as our company's been embarking on a multi-million-dollar investment on new learning platforms, including social media. There's three main observations I've had over this last while, and the first one is that an effective system is one that is used. The second is, if we want people to do one more thing, you're going to need to find a way to take off something from their plate because their plate is already way too full. And third, for an effective ecosystem to exist, and that's really what a learning platform or a social media platform is. For an ecosystem to exist, it's really important to have a critical mass of both planters and weeders. I want to talk about these three observations now in turn. The first one, an effective system is one that is used. Oftentimes, companies tend to think about the investments in internal infrastructure in this line of logic that, if we build it, they'll come, and if we build it, we own it, therefore we can control it. And these tenets kind of run counter to the whole world of social media and participation in social media. I'd say that it's really important to have some guidelines and some do's and don'ts when it comes to social media posting, learning, all that stuff. But at the same time, if we really think that it's possible to control what people are doing, that actually is a bit of a futile effort. I also believe that the increasing complexity and burden of governance is inversely proportional to participation. So if you want a really secure system, the most secure system you'll get is one that's not used, and it's one that has really fancy governance systems. Second, if we want people to do one more thing, you're going to need to take something off their plate. Borrowing from Andy McAfee's book Enterprise 2.0, talks about getting new processes into the flow. And I think this is actually really kind of an interesting concept. So as an example, if we want people to be blogging or to be posting things on discussion forums, what are we going to take off their plate? Because that actually takes some time. I think one of the most successful stories that I've seen is one where we had a project manager who was working on a fairly high profile project. And one of the things that this project manager decided to do was to say that any communication or question regarding this project, he wasn't going to actually accept email anymore. It had to go on to this team collaboration site where people actually posted their questions, and he would be there to answer them. And what was interesting is this replacing of the function of going onto the team collaboration site to get updates, to ask questions, replaced the function of email. Now this was actually a very gutsy and bold move, and as you might guess, there was a lot of resistance to it. But this is an example of taking something out of the daily routine and using that taking out as a means to facilitate putting something else into that flow, that daily workflow and process that people go through in their normal day-to-day. Third, for an effective ecosystem, having a critical mass of both planters and weeders. What we really mean here is you need a certain number of people to seed a platform, and you need people to go through to be able to call, to group, to help kind of clean up and sort. I think one of the most important things when we're talking about social media and learning is that you need a really strong search capability. And this is actually what I see kind of sometimes the role of the weeder to be able to group things that are alike, or to be able to simplify, so that when the user kind of goes on, you want them to be able to find the flowers. And if there's a lot of these plants and people can't find the flowers, you don't want them to leave. So this concept of a weeder is very important. Second thing kind of related to this concept is that typically a lot of the time you'll hear the 90-10-1 rule thrown around. 90% of content on learning platforms created by 10% of the user base, and really only 1% of the users are really active in keeping the network alive. this stat or this rough guideline doesn't work when you're talking about internal infrastructure, because when you think about the numbers, it just doesn't play out. I've read and heard that you need a critical mass of close to 1,000 people for a platform to thrive. So how are you going to get the 90-10-1 numbers when your company or your team or the people, the community of practice that's using it is actually less than 1,000? Well, I think this is where you're going to need to find a way to drive up participation beyond that. And in my estimation, you need a participation of between 30 to 50% of people actively using. And this again speaks back to the observation that I had that getting this new process into the flow is critical. So I think as leaders, one of the things for us to really think through is, number one, is it really necessary for us to create an internal infrastructure, or is it possible to leverage external? Two, how can we design our work processes so that we can most effectively and efficiently utilize some of these social media platforms, and really having some proactive thinking around what kinds of things can be taken off the plate in order for this to exist. And finally, I think one of the hardest tasks to get something off the ground is, how do you build up that critical mass of people in there? And to begin with, I think that it is really important that you have a core group of people that you're really regularly meeting with to build this critical mass and momentum for the learning platform to take off.